Hello everybody, welcome back to a brand new episode of F122 Driver Career Mode here on the channel. I hope you're all having a great day. Today, we head to the Brazilian Grand Prix. It's a sprint weekend with just 2 episodes remaining on the season, fresh into an exciting circuit to race on here. You can see the standings with Max Verstappen trying to lock up his second World Drivers' Championship here today. He has the chance to do it with the sprint race as well, being a potential benefit to him, but it's going to be a difficult task. And now, as Charles Leclerc, it's a pretty simple task as you see us flying into Brazil and checking out the area, but it's a pretty simple, straightforward day for Charles Leclerc. He has to try his best to beat Max Verstappen at all costs, and he can take a hit in the sprint race. So Leclerc doesn't need to beat Verstappen in the sprint race, but if he doesn't beat Max in the sprint race and Max gets some points, he is going to need a incredible Grand Prix. Probably, I would say, realistically, a win, and hope that Verstappen, in perfect case scenario, doesn't pick up a single point. And that will give him an opportunity, of course, to win the World Drivers title in Abu Dhabi. Now, we saw Leclerc make a late season charge last season in Season 1 to steal that second World Drivers Championship away from Verstappen. And we saw Ferrari as a whole make a late season charge and steal the Constructors from Red Bull as well. Can we repeat that this season? It's coming down to crunch time, obviously, with 2 episodes left here in Season 2 before the third and final season, which, by the way, because of the earlier release date for F123, when we're doing the final season of this career mode, is going to be pretty short. It's going to be, I think, 10 Grand Prix long. As you can see, the free practice one order right there. Ricardo all the way down in P17, getting ready for qualifying. So we're hoping that we're not going to have to change a single engine part throughout the rest of the season, because we did replace the engine in the last episode. So it's really looking good for us here now for the rest of these final couple of Grand Prix. As you see us getting ready to go on track, Brazil is a very difficult circuit for qualifying. I've always struggled here. I can have good race pace, but I am probably going to struggle in qualifying. But you've seen that trend throughout this season, is me struggling in qualifying. However, we have gotten a pole recently in Mexico, but yeah, I mean, still, you can see us late here in Q1. So our first lap put us in P12. We would find a little bit more speed, and actually in the final turn, finding a decent amount of time, but only about 0.2 of a second total. That only puts us P10, and we would actually end up P15. Less than half a tenth gets us in to Q2. Remember when I said we're going to struggle in qualifying? Well, you see it right there. No big names, however, missing out on Q2. As you can see, Alex Albon again in the Williams Porsche. Again, just continuing to impress with that team as the season goes on. Here we are late in Q2 as I myself get my first and potentially only lap underway here in the second qualifying session now. So it's a one and done. Hamilton stalking me this whole lap basically now. As you can see myself looking at the time on the top right, we actually will have enough time for one more lap. We cross the line, it's P8. You would think, okay, so far maybe so good, but it wasn't going to last long, I would reckon. Now everybody's making their final lap right now, so they're going to probably go faster. I'm a tad bit faster, but you can see down to P9, down to P10, Perez P11, he's coming to the line in a couple of seconds. This could knock us down out of Q3. Yes, it does. Perez improves quite drastically, and we're down to P11. We have to find some speed. We're right on the fine line of finding some speed. Now we found a Rolex sign in the grass, actually, there, so, well, we're out, and we're down to P12 in the process, so it looks like P12 is where we're going to have to settle for. So that's the end of our qualifying session, unfortunately. And yeah, sure enough, P12. Fortunately for us, however, it's a sprint weekend. You can see me kind of highlighting, look how close we were to actually getting in. Less than half a tenth to getting into Q3. But yeah, it is what it is. Let's go to the sprint race in Brazil.
So it's all about speed in today's sprint. Not very many laps and no chance to get ahead on strategy. Who here today has the raw skill to take them to the top? Let's run you through the driver grid order for today's exciting sprint. World champion Max Verstappen starts from pole position, and starting next to them is George Russell. Looking at the rest of today's grid, we have Leclerc, Hamilton, Carlos Sainz, and Fernando Alonso. Perez, Ricardo, Ocon, and Kevin Magnussen. Gasly, Golden Boy, Mick Schumacher, and Norris. Albon, Tsunoda, Guan Yu Zhou, and Nicholas Latifi. Stroll, and Robert Schwartzman. And with preparations almost complete, let's head trackside for today's sprint.
Max Verstappen is starting on pole, Charles Leclerc starting directly behind him in third place, so one row back in the same lane. Well, Leclerc maybe lunge one up the inside. 3 wide, a very big possibility here into turn 1. You can see myself starting on the medium compound tire. Very straightforward. Let's get ready to roll.
Here we go then. The formation lap is underway ahead of today's sprint. As all the cars take their positions on the grid, the final preparations have been made, and all that's left is for the drivers to deliver on track.
Alright boys, same as usual. At this point, you know, start off slow and let's move our way forward.
Can't say I'm a fan of this trend, but let's get the job done.
You hear myself and Mark on the radio here, ready to go racing for the sprint race in Brazil. Max Verstappen on that first starting position. Things are looking awfully good for him right off the bat to kick off this weekend, where he could seal the deal for his second world title, or this could blow the door wide open here today. We're about to find out which one it is going to be. Magnussen there in front of us in P10. It's 5 red lights, and it's going to be lights out. We're underway in the Brazilian Grand Prix weekend sprint race now, and look at this. It's a great start for George Russell, already clear into turn 1 of Verstappen. Hamilton side by side, wheel to wheel with the Dutchman, and who's going to come out of this corner? It's Hamilton ahead, so up into second place, down to third goes Verstappen. Leclerc in fourth, but he's got my teammate of Daniel Ricciardo in his penultimate Grand Prix weekend, now making a move. The Australian trying to go around the outside into turn 4, and he might actually be successful with this move. He continues wheel to wheel. The Alpine, and then of course Carlos Sainz just behind as well. Leclerc loses the position to Daniel Ricciardo. How about that? And it is not over, because now Leclerc has to fight Fernando Alonso here as he comes through sector 2. A little bit of contact potentially right there. Sainz, the Spaniard, where's he going to go as we head down towards the sweeping right hairpin now? And I myself in the background making a move up the inside of Kevin Magnussen, going for the position, but Leclerc holds the Alpine off and now maintains what, P5 I think it is, so not the start that he of course would be looking for. You see Perez and Ocon having a bit of a scrap as well, and I'm a little bit behind this after I got past Magnussen in P11 currently. I was pretty happy with the start to this Grand Prix. Now is actually looking back, you see it looks like, oh, that's Mick Schumacher coming into the pits, and as well one of the Aston Martins are into the pits now as we have some ghosting again. I gotta turn the ghosting off. It's so stupid in this game now. I need to remember to do that going into Abu Dhabi. I don't understand why it's suddenly become a problem over the last few months in this game. But nonetheless, settling in to P11 behind Pierre Gasly on lap 3 at this point now, trying to close in on the back of the Frenchman here. And you can see lap 5 of 12, and I was struggling, you know, I would just be downright straight with it. I mean, I was struggling with pace here in the sprint. I mean, we are definitely quicker than what we had in qualifying, but still overall struggling. I mean, you see me struggling to get to the back of the AlphaTauri of Pierre Gasly. I'm not going to struggle to get to him anymore. He just went around all by himself. So around goes Gasly, up into P10 we go. That is not points, of course. It's P8 or better for points in the sprints, but no safety car. Gasly would get it back going, and actually we would start to see a few moments here. That's Robert Schwartzman going wide in turn 1. He has a bit of a moment, and then Max Verstappen, as this is all developing, he lunges one up the inside of Lewis Hamilton for second place. Charles Leclerc does not want to see this. Verstappen through to second, 2.8 seconds a gap to Russell. I don't think he's going to have anywhere near enough time to actually run down the British driver of George Russell, with now 4 coming to 3 laps to go at this point here. I myself still settling into P10, 1.9 seconds the gap between myself and Alex Albon, Esteban Ocon, but you can see the 1.7 seconds now. A few moments later, yellow flag still behind us. It's Magnussen who's had a mechanical failure, and then there's a yellow in turn 1 as well. There's an AlphaTauri. It's Gasly again who's spun around. You can see it right there. That's the second self-spin for him in the sprint race, and a bit of a rough sprint race for him, obviously, as things go from bad to worse. So Magnussen out of the Grand Prix, or out of the sprint, and as I myself come to the final moments of the sprint, you can see 1.4 seconds to Ocon. Just didn't have the pace in the car. Simple as that. Final lap, we come straight to it, and Max Verstappen was not able to run down George Russell, and Leclerc was not able to get past my teammate of Ricciardo, so he's going to have to settle for 5th place. So Max Verstappen is going to increase the point gap as Russell comes through to cross the line to win the sprint race here in Brazil. Verstappen second, Hamilton third, Ricciardo not far behind, and same for Leclerc, but unfortunately P5 for Charles Leclerc. We're going to cross the line here for P10. Like I said 3 times already, I think, I just didn't have the pace. I don't know where it was. I struggled hard in this sprint now, and we're not going to change anything into the Grand Prix, to be honest, but we'll see what we have there as Lance Stroll is going to get driver of the day. But obviously we need to see how this affects the points battle between Max Verstappen as well as Leclerc. And not only that, we have the constructors battle, but there's also a points battle between myself and Sergio Perez for 4th in the standings, and there's a constructors battle between us and McLaren and Mercedes, who just gained big points on us right there. Well, not big points, a few points, because it's a sprint, but you can see Leclerc is 37 points behind. He needs a lot of help. He's going to have to hope Verstappen gets no points and he wins this Grand Prix. Otherwise, it's going to be a steep hill to climb. You can see the constructors there, a little over 40 points out for us and 34 for Ferrari on Red Bull. Let's head to the grid for the Grand Prix.
Welcome along then to where heroes and history are made. It's where the 2008 title was decided in the very final corner. And just 1 year later, Jenson Button stormed through from 14th on the grid to claim his one and only Drivers' Championship. It's time then for the Sao Paulo Grand Prix. It's an unusual anti-clockwise race here at Interlagos, where the Sao Paulo locals are packed into the grandstands at each of the 15 corners around this classic 2.7-mile circuit. 2 very fast sections bookend the famous and highly technical Sector 2, where getting a good run out of Junsao into one of the 2 DRS zones will be key to any overtaking prospects today. Before we begin, let's take a quick look at the grid lineup for today's race. Lewis Hamilton lines up on pole position, and P2 goes to Daniel Ricciardo, a strong showing from the Australian. As we continue through the rest of the grid today, we have Leclerc, Fernando Alonso, Carlos Sainz, and Perez. Ocon, Golden Boy, Russell, they've taken a grid penalty, and Max Verstappen. Stroll, Albon, Robert Schwartzman, and Gasly. Mick Schumacher, Joe, they'll be starting further back after an earlier grid penalty. Nicholas Latifi and Lando Norris. Tsunoda, they've taken a grid penalty, and Kevin Magnussen fills the last spot on the grid. It's almost time for those 5 red lights to go out then. Let's see who can prevail today. Anthony Davidson joins me once again in the commentary box. Ant, it's fantastic to have you with us here, but I'm curious, as a man with experience out on the track, how do you stop those pre-race nerves from becoming overwhelming when you're lining up on the grid?
Well, I imagine they'll be starting to feel the adrenaline as they anticipate the rundown into turn 1, a bit like preparing to go into battle. The unknown situation will bring nerves, but that's a good thing. It will keep them focused on the moment and on their surroundings as we build towards the start of the Grand Prix.
I want you guys to comment down below right now a prediction. Do you think Max Verstappen wraps up the championship or not in this episode? We're about to find out, starting on the mediums, going to hards.
Here we go then, the formation lap gets underway and the excitement here is building as we near ever closer to the start of the race. Which team will come out on top? Who's got their strategies right for today's race? We'll soon find out. As the cars make their way back to the starting grid to form up and get ready for lights out, let's hope the race ahead today is a thrilling one that will go down as a memorable Grand Prix in the history books.
All right, mate, I don't know where the pace was yesterday. Just focus in and do what you can today.
You hear the message sent to myself there from Mark. Don't know where the pace was yesterday, but just do what we can today. Hope that there's something a bit better here now as we are ready to roll. I mean, we were P2 in the last episode in Mexico. We had a lot of pace, didn't quite have enough pace in the wet conditions as a lot of drivers around us, but still a solid podium finish of second place. We're ready to go racing. It's going to be 5 red lights and lights out. We're underway. Max Verstappen took a grid penalty. You saw it, so he is starting a little ways down the order, and you can see him in the background. down. That's not him, that's Perez making a move 3 wide up the inside. Actually, that was on Fernando Alonso and Carlos Sainz, and there was actually damage done to Fernando on his front wing, so the Red Bull getting after it right off the bat. Max Verstappen, we already talked about it, he needs to finish in the points, of course, if he wants to win the championship, depending on what Leclerc does, if Leclerc, say, wins the Grand Prix or something. So Verstappen's already going to gain 1 extra position at the end of this lap due to his teammate taking the part of the front wing off Fernando Alonso's car there, so almost like a sabotage moment. You can see Verstappen in the background there. He's alongside Alex Albon in that Williams Porsche now, as I'm so excited to watch that team going into Season 3, the final season of this career mode, and hopefully they continue to develop, and I can't wait to see maybe the Audi team as well move their way forward here as they take over Alfa Romeo. You saw myself send it up the inside of Fernando. I was not wasting any time. Russell, the sprint winner, back in P8 with the grid penalties as well now, so you can see Alonso in the pit lane now on the track map. So we're up to P7, pretty happy with the opening lap for myself, and grid penalties of course helped us out as well, but you can see myself right off the bat, I noticed a difference in pace. I didn't change anything on the car, I was just downright having more pace in the actual Grand Prix. I was sticking with Carlos Sainz, not far behind Esteban Ocon here on lap 3, coming to now lap 4. DRS wide open, not enough to make a lunge down into turn 1. I nearly run into the back of Sainz, and then Ocon locks up, and actually he's going to open the door for both myself and Sainz to slip through. So now we move up to P6, but hold on, now we have a run and Sainz has no DRS to use, and we're gonna get a now 2-in-1 sector here up the inside of the Spaniard. We're gonna go move through into the top 5. So actually a very unexpected pleasant start to this Grand Prix. Perez, Hamilton 4th and 3rd. Hamilton once again on it here today in Brazil, a track and country he loves so much, and you can see Ricciardo out in front over Charles Leclerc in 2nd place. Yellow flags, lap 4, it's Hamilton having a good Grand Prix, and there it goes. His engine has failed as we come through to the 5th lap here, and in the background, Verstappen lunges one up the inside of Russell, and he runs Russell wide into the front wing. He goes of the Mercedes. He loses a spot, but not for long, because Russell has to come into the pits there to replace the front wing. Verstappen is absolutely on a rampage right now.
Just a warning, the Red Bulls are in bulldoze mode. Verstappen just took Russell's wing right off. Be aware if he gets to you. He's doing everything he can to win the title today.
Message received loud and clear. Verstappen and Red Bull in general. I mean, you saw Perez take the front wing off of Alonso. Now Verstappen did it with a desperation move, and now here he goes on lap 10. This is a move up the inside, a little bit of contact with the other Alpine. Red Bull and Alpine not getting along today. Verstappen loses out on that battle, but it's not going to be over yet, because he's going to have DRS again, and he should be able to make the move down into turn 4. He's going to go to the left side. Ocon doesn't really try very hard to defend it. Verstappen through into 6th place. I mean, Max Verstappen has been gifted these positions so far. Perez gave him one by taking the wing off of Alonso. Hamilton, of course, with the engine failure, and then Verstappen running into Russell, as I get a bold strategy change to go to lap 24 and then move on to the soft. So I decided to take it because look at this. This is my main reason to do such a bold strategy change that Mark offered to us, was because I was really quick. I had run down Perez, Leclerc, and Ricciardo. We have an absolutely insane pace compared to what we did previously in the sprint. Yellow flags again, and it gets better for Max Verstappen. Carlos Sainz is pulling out. He is going to be out of the Grand Prix due to a mechanical failure. This is worst case scenario for Charles Leclerc. Verstappen's being handed these positions that he needs. He's up to P5, and here I am with a run now on the back of Sergio Perez. He defends left. I go to the right side of the circuit here, down into turn 4. We're going to exit the corner, up into 3rd podium position we go. And now we'll see what Perez can do if he can stick with us. But him and, well, everybody around us, and everybody for the matter in this race, is going to be pitting now significantly earlier than us, unless they've also had a strategy change. I'm not quite sure why Mark decided to give me the strategy change, but you can see Leclerc sticking to plan A, it appears. He is going to box earlier than Ricciardo, so he's going to switch from those mediums to softs. We'll see how this works itself out, but this might be an undercut that puts Leclerc in the long-term lead of this Grand Prix, which he basically needs to win, with Verstappen running in 5th place right now. Ricciardo pits a lap later, so we go through to take the lead of the Grand Prix. Perez is also going to follow Ricciardo in a yellow flag in Sector 2. One of the Haas cars has gone around, but they would get it collected and back going. Now on the right side of the pit lane, it's going to be Leclerc. You can see right there, he is going to get ahead of both Perez as well as Ricciardo. Well, he was already ahead of Perez, but he gets ahead of Ricciardo there, so that will put him as the net leader. We're staying out, like I said, to lap 24, and you're going to watch that gap on the top left there. Verstappen's now still running P5, but he is closing in quickly on Perez, Ricciardo, Leclerc, but you can see that that Leclerc was really making time on me on those fresh hards while I'm managing these aging mediums. 17.7 seconds. It's continuing to go down and down and down. 17.54 now at this point as we head down towards that final turn. But look at this, starting the pit window being open, down to 16.2 seconds. So we're not going to be leading. We're probably going to be, I think, P5 once we exit the pit lane. We're about to find out anyways. We're going to head down near the pit lane on lap 24. So we're only going to have, you know, 12 laps of racing to go when we get back out on the track. So we're going to come in, put on a fresh set of soft tires, and we're going to have a huge advantage early on because they're on the hards. However, the softs are going to wear significantly quicker than those hard compound tires. So although I'm going to be really quick for the first half of this run, I would say at least the last probably 4 or 5 laps of this Grand Prix, I'm going to struggle. So it's important to complete these overtakes, but the gap might be too much to get to Leclerc. You can already see how far down ahead he is. He's already approaching turn 4 as I'm just now exiting the pit lane, so there is some work to be done, but you're gonna see just how much of an advantage it is to have these fresh soft tires on. We had enough speed to run down Ricardo Leclerc Perez earlier on hard tires, or on medium tires, sorry, on the same medium tires, so I'm hoping that we can have enough pace to beat everybody here, but Leclerc really does have a nice gap, but we would run down Verstappen and Perez, you know, in a matter of seconds it felt like. Now on the back of Verstappen with the DRS, and I'm already looking to make a move. He's blocking to the inside. I set the fastest lap of the Grand Prix. He goes defensive, but now he goes too aggressive. Verstappen has run into the back of his teammate of Perez and has taken his front wing completely off. You see it again, and the championship has completely changed in just one moment. And all of this season with racing against Max Verstappen, where he has taken us out multiple times, I make a move on him, and he goes over defensive and drives into the back of his teammate of Sergio Perez. Karma has finally struck in the penultimate race of the season here, as you can see myself sending it up the inside of Perez down into turn 1 using these softs to my advantage, but Verstappen now in the pits. This is going to drop him out of the points while Leclerc leads, which was basically a perfect case scenario obviously for Leclerc to give himself any chance, but look at this, we're still not done. We are making huge gains on these softs right now, and actually nearly some contact with Ricardo. I had a bit of a moment right there where I thought he was going to run into me, so I kind of pulled back to the right. I don't think I needed to do that, but nonetheless that stalls out the overtake here. 4.9 seconds to Leclerc. That's a gap that I'm focused on because look at how quick we are passing Ricardo. His final time here in Brazil, one final race for him in the next episode before obviously retirement from Formula 1. 4.8 seconds down to 4.1 on lap 30 of 36. Ricardo settling into P3. Ocon having a great day there in P5 as we're now trying to run him down up ahead in that Ferrari. I personally, you know, I would love to see Leclerc make a cool comeback again after the way Verstappen's races this season, but I don't care that Leclerc needs to win this race. I want to go win myself. It would actually get worse for Max Verstappen. Look at this, right there, contact with Schumacher, who locked up into turn 4. That would damage his wing again, and that was a move for 10th. That would give him at least a point, but he would have to box for another front wing. So it has gone from bad to worse for Max Verstappen. Lap 32, 3.1 seconds a gap, but now the softs were starting to hit that point where they were wearing all my tires were over 100 degrees Celsius at this point. They were all overheating, and my pace would suffer from that. It was 2.6 seconds a gap now, coming to 2 laps to go, and at this point I realized the strategy that we had called wasn't going to be enough. The gap actually goes up to 2.9 seconds starting this final lap, and we had finally hit that turnover point where I'd abused the softs too much that I wasn't going to be able to run down Leclerc. So it was a heck of an attempt, you know. It was an awesome call in my opinion from Mark. We tried, it just wasn't meant to be. 3.5 seconds by the time we come through to the end of the lap. Charles Leclerc needed to win this race if he wanted to really give himself a realistic opportunity to make the comeback here for the championship in Abu Dhabi, and he is going to do exactly that, and better yet, Max Verstappen will go pointless in the Grand Prix. He did get some sprint points that could make all the difference. Next episode in the season finale in Abu Dhabi, we end up in second place. We're going to get a point update in just a few moments, but back-to-back second place results here. What a day when we struggled so hard in the sprint. Great pace today. Lando Norris, driver of the day. Let's head to the podium for the post-race celebrations.
We've witnessed some great battles around the historic curves of Interlagos today, and they've taken a fantastic win. So, Anthony, what made the difference out there today?
I feel like consistency was probably the key today. There's being quick, and then there's being quick lap after lap after lap. If you can do that, you can capitalise on other people's errors without making many of your own. And that's an approach that can push you a long way up the field.
Now, before we look at the points and whatnot, I just want to take a moment to admire this podium celebration, because this could be the final time ever for me to have Daniel Ricciardo standing on a podium in a Formula 1 game, at least you know, in a current modern day Formula 1 game. Leclerc, though, picking up the victory, and very cool to see both the McLarens up there in the podium positions. Obviously, it helped when Russell had the grid penalty, plus the damage from Verstappen. Hamilton had the engine failure. Sainz had his issues. Alonso had issues. We had a lot of help here today. Let's be real about that. And Verstappen had a lot of help. And then a whole bunch of karma came back at him right at the end, which, you know, it's going to be an interesting season finale. There you see the finishing order. Alonso with the final point. Russell ends up P11. Albon right there, actually a disappointing 15th place for him, while his teammate of Latifi there down a few spots lower in P17. We're going to take a look at the standings. Here it is. Look at that. Verstappen's mistake gives him a 12-point advantage. So it's not over. It's going to get interesting in Abu Dhabi. Anything can happen there. Red Bull only has a 21-point advantage, and we make huge gains on Mercedes ourselves, and we are 9 points back. So we have 2 constructors battles and points battles between myself and Paris, and for the World Championship between Leclerc and Verstappen, as Verstappen has a 12-point gap going into the finale of Season 2. I'm so excited for Abu Dhabi, and I hope you are as well. I'll see you guys then. Have a great day, everybody.